Is this some kind of joke? The voice was a growl, thick with whiskey and menace. Razor, the leader of the Iron Devil's motorcycle club, stood in the doorway of the dusty barrel, his leather vest creaking as he crossed his massive arms. Behind him, 4 more bikers filed in, each one bigger and meaner than the last. Their boots thudded against the wooden floor like a drumbeat of impending violence. The bar was small, a forgotten watering hole on a forgotten highway in rural Montana. A handful of locals sat scattered at tables, their Friday night beers suddenly forgotten. A young couple in the corner booth froze mid-conversation. The jukebox played a sad country song that nobody was listening to anymore. Behind the bar stood Jack Crawford. At 69, he moved with the unhurried patience of a man who'd seen everything worth seeing. His hair was silver, cropped short, and his face was a weathered map of hard years. He was polishing a glass, the same glass he'd been polishing for the last 10 minutes, watching the scene unfold in the mirror behind the bottles. Razor swaggered up to the bar, his crew fanning out behind him. He slammed a meaty fist on the counter. "Hey, old man, you deaf? I said give us whatever's in that register, now." Jack set down the glass. "Bar's closed. Do I look like I care?" Razor leaned forward, his breath a toxic mix of alcohol and cigarettes. "Open the register, give us the cash, and maybe we won't burn this shithole down with you in it." One of the bikers, a massive man with a shaved head and a spiderweb tattoo covering his neck, grabbed a bottle of whiskey from the shelf. He didn't ask. He just took it and started drinking straight from the bottle. "That's a 30-year bourbon," Jack said calmly. "You're supposed to sip it." The biker laughed, spraying whiskey. "Listen to Grandpa here, giving us drinking lessons." He smashed the bottle on the bar, holding the jagged neck like a weapon. "How about I give you a lesson instead?" The young woman in the corner booth let out a small whimper. Her boyfriend put his arm around her, trying to make them both invisible. The locals were frozen, caught between the instinct to run and the fear of drawing attention. Razor noticed the couple. His eyes, small and cruel, locked onto the woman. "Well, well, what do we have here?" He started walking toward their booth, his boots deliberately slow. "Pretty little thing. What's a girl like you doing in a dump like this?" The boyfriend stood up, his voice shaking. "Leave her alone." Razor didn't even look at him. He just backhanded him across the face, sending him crashing into the table. The woman screamed. Razor grabbed her arm and yanked her up. "Shut up! You're coming with us. Boys need some entertainment." "Let her go." Jack's voice cut through the chaos. It wasn't loud, but something in its tone made everyone freeze. Razor turned, still gripping the terrified woman. "What did you say, old man?" "I said let her go. Take the money, take the liquor, but leave the girl." Razor laughed, a harsh barking sound. "Or what? You gonna call the cops? By the time they get here, we'll be 3 counties away." He pulled the woman closer, his other hand producing a hunting knife from his belt. "Maybe I'll leave them a present, something to remember us by." Jack stepped out from behind the bar. His movements were slow, deliberate, almost casual. But something had changed in his posture. The other bikers noticed it before Razor did. The old man wasn't scared. He should have been terrified. But instead, there was something in his eyes that made the spider-tattooed biker take a half-step back. "Last chance," Jack said. "Walk away." Razor pressed the knife against the woman's throat. "You've got 5 seconds to get back behind that bar and open that register, or I start cutting." The biker with the broken bottle moved toward Jack. "Let me handle this, Razor. Teach Grandpa some respect." He lunged, the jagged glass aimed at Jack's face. What happened next took less than 2 seconds. Jack's hands shot out, not to block, but to guide. He redirected the biker's momentum, using his own force against him. The broken bottle continued its arc, embedding itself in the wooden bar instead of flesh. Before the biker could process what had happened, Jack's elbow connected with his temple. He dropped like a puppet with cut strings. The bar went silent. Even the jukebox seemed to hold its breath. Razor's eyes widened. What the hell? The three remaining bikers exchanged glances. Their friend, a man who'd beaten people half to death in bar fights across 6 states, was unconscious on the floor, taken down by an old bartender in the blink of an eye. "Get him!" Razor shouted, still holding the woman as a shield. 2 bikers rushed Jack simultaneously. The first threw a haymaker that would have knocked out a horse. Jack wasn't there. He'd already moved, stepping inside the punch, his body rotating with a fluidity that belonged to a man 40 years younger. His palms struck upward, catching the biker under the chin. The man's teeth clacked together, and his eyes rolled back. The second biker tried to tackle Jack from behind. Jack dropped his weight, sprawling low, then drove his elbow backward into the man's solar plexus. The biker doubled over, gasping for air that wouldn't come. Jack rose, grabbed the back of his head, and introduced his face to the bar counter. The wood cracked. The biker slid to the floor, joining his friends. 3 down in under 10 seconds. The fourth biker, a younger man who'd been hanging back, pulled a pistol from his waistband. His hands were shaking. "Stay back, old man. I'll shoot!" Jack stopped. His eyes locked onto the gun, then traveled up to meet the young biker's terrified gaze. "You ever killed anyone, son?" "What?" "It's a simple question. Have you ever taken a life?" The biker's gun wavered. I will if I have to." "No, you won't. I can see it in your eyes. You're not a killer. You're just a kid who fell in with the wrong crowd." Jack took a slow step forward. "Put the gun down. Walk out that door. Drive away and never look back. This doesn't have to be your story." For a moment, something flickered in the young man's eyes. Doubt. Hope. Then Razor's voice shattered it. "Shoot him, Danny! Shoot him now!" Danny's finger tightened on the trigger. Jack moved. His hand swept up, pushing the barrel toward the ceiling just as the gun fired. The bullet punched a hole in the tin roof. In the same motion, Jack's other hand struck Danny's wrist, a precise blow to the nerve cluster. The gun clattered to the floor. Jack caught it before it landed, ejected the magazine, cleared the chamber, and set the empty weapon on the bar. All in one continuous motion. Danny stared at his empty hand, then at Jack, then bolted for the door. He was gone into the night, the roar of his motorcycle fading into the distance. Now, it was just Razor, the knife, and the woman. "Who the hell are you?" Razor's voice had lost its swagger. There was fear there now, poorly hidden behind bravado. Jack walked toward him slowly. "I'm the guy who's going to give you one chance to let her go. One more step and I cut her throat." Jack stopped. His eyes never left Razor's. "You know what I used to do for a living? I taught men how to survive, how to evade capture, how to resist interrogation, how to escape from situations that seemed impossible." He paused. "I trained Navy SEALs, Delta operators, Air Force PJs. The most dangerous men on the planet sat in my classroom and called me Sir." Razor's knife hand trembled slightly. "Part of that training involved teaching them how to take a hostage away from someone. We practiced it thousands of times. Every angle, every scenario." Jack's voice dropped lower. "I know exactly how fast I can reach you. I know the precise angle to deflect that blade. I know that your grip is weak because you're scared and your palm is sweating. And I know that if you hurt her, there is nowhere on this earth you can hide from me." The woman was crying silently, tears streaming down her face. But she'd stopped struggling. Something in the old man's voice told her to be still, to trust him. "You're bluffing," Razor said, but his voice cracked. "Try me." For a long moment, nobody moved. The tension was a physical thing, pressing down on everyone in the bar. Then Razor made his decision. He shoved the woman forward and lunged at Jack, the knife slashing in a vicious arc. Jack caught Razor's wrist with his left hand, stopping the blade inches from his chest. His right hand shot forward, fingers pressing into specific points on Razor's arm. The biker's hand spasmed open involuntarily, the knife dropping. Before it hit the ground, Jack had already rotated Razor's arm behind his back, forcing him face down onto the bar. "Compliance hold," Jack said conversationally, applying pressure that made Razor gasp in pain. "Another thing I taught. Very effective." The woman had stumbled into her boyfriend's arms. He was bleeding from a cut on his forehead, but he was okay. The locals were slowly emerging from their frozen states, some reaching for phones, others just staring in disbelief. "Someone want to call the sheriff?" Jack asked, not releasing his grip on Razor. "Tell him he's got 5 for pickup. Attempted robbery, assault, kidnapping. Should keep them busy for a while." Sheriff Tom Bradley arrived 20 minutes later with 2 deputies. He was a big man, pushing 60, with a gut that strained against his uniform. He'd known Jack Crawford for 5 years, ever since the old man had drifted into town and bought the Dusty Barrel. In all that time, he'd never seen Jack raise his voice, let alone his fists. Now he stood in the middle of his bar, surrounded by 4 unconscious bikers and 1 very subdued gang leader, looking like he'd just finished a slow Tuesday night. "Jack," Bradley said slowly, surveying the carnage. "You want to tell me what happened here?" "They tried to rob the place. Things escalated." Bradley looked at Razor, zip-tied to a bar stool, his face a mask of humiliated rage. Then at the other 4, groaning as they regained consciousness. Then back at Jack. "You did this? All 5 of them?" They weren't very good at fighting. One of the deputies, a young man named Collins, was taking statements. The young couple couldn't stop talking. "He was like something out of a movie," the boyfriend said, holding ice to his head. "I've never seen anyone move like that." "Like water," the girlfriend finished. "He flowed around them." Old Pete Morrison, a regular who'd been nursing beers at this bar for 30 years, shook his head. "Always knew there was something different about Jack. Tonight I saw what those eyes can do." Bradley walked over to Jack, who had returned behind the bar and was pouring himself a drink. Bourbon. Neat. "Jack, I've known you 5 years. You never mentioned you could do whatever that was." Jack took a sip. "Never came up. It's coming up now. Those boys are iron devils. They've got chapters across 3 states. They don't take kindly to being embarrassed. When word gets out that a 69-year-old bartender put 5 of them in the hospital, they're going to come back. And not just 5. Let them come." Bradley leaned on the bar, voice dropping. "I'm serious. I can't protect you if the whole club decides to ride into town. I've got 4 deputies and a drunk tank that holds 6. Who are you, really?" Jack was quiet, swirling the bourbon. "You ever hear of SERE training, Tom?" "Survival something. Military stuff. Survival, evasion, resistance, escape. Training they give to pilots, special operators, anyone who might end up behind enemy lines. Teaches them how to survive in hostile territory, evade capture, resist interrogation, and escape if taken." "What about it?" "I was an instructor, 22 years. I didn't just teach basics. I ran the advanced program. The one they send SEALs to before deployment. The one Delta operators go through. The one that makes hard men harder." Bradley stared at him. "You trained special forces?" "I trained the people who train special forces. Hand-to-hand combat, stress inoculation, tactical psychology. I spent 2 decades putting the most dangerous warriors on the planet through hell so they'd be ready for anything." Jack finished his bourbon. 5 drunk bikers with knives aren't anything." The sheriff was quiet. "Why'd you stop? Why come here and run a bar in the middle of nowhere?" "Because I got tired of preparing people for war. I wanted to make drinks and listen to country music and watch people have ordinary problems." Jack smiled sadly. "I wanted to forget what humans are capable of doing to each other." "Looks like tonight reminded you. Some things you can't forget. You just learn to live with them." Deputy Collins approached. "Sheriff, all statements say Mr. Crawford acted in self-defense and defense of others. Clear cut." Bradley nodded. "Get these boys loaded up." He turned back to Jack. "You might want to think about a vacation. Somewhere far away. until this blows over. I'm not running, Tom. Never have. This isn't about courage. It's about being smart. I appreciate the concern, but this is my bar, my home. If they want it, they can try to take it. As deputies hauled the bikers out, Razor twisted around, face swollen, one eye blackening, but voice clear. This isn't over, old man. You have no idea what you've started. The whole club is going to hear about this. We're going to burn this place to the ground with you inside. Jack met his gaze calmly. I've had worse threats from better men. Sleep it off. Razor was dragged out into the night, still screaming promises of revenge. Word traveled fast. Within 48 hours, the story of the Dusty Barrel had spread across biker forums, local news, and social media. Elderly bartender defeats 5 armed bikers, made headlines as far as Billings. Reporters called. Jack didn't answer. What he did answer was the rumble of motorcycles 3 days later. Sunday afternoon, quiet and golden. Jack was restocking when he heard them. Not 5 bikes this time, more like 20. The sound grew until it filled the air like thunder, then cut off as they parked outside. The locals, enjoying afternoon beers, looked at each other with fear. Old Pete headed for the back door. The young couple from Friday night went pale. Everyone stay calm, Jack said, and stay inside. He walked outside, closing the door behind him. The parking lot was filled with chrome and leather. 23 bikers. At the front stood a massive man in his 50s, gray beard braided, arms covered in tattoos. The president of the Iron Devils, known only as Bishop. You the bartender? Bishop's voice carried easily. I am. You put 5 of my boys in the hospital. Razor's got a fractured skull. Might have brain damage. He shouldn't have threatened a woman with a knife. Bishop dismounted slowly. He was enormous, 6'4" and 300 pounds. He stopped 10 feet away. His crew stayed on their bikes. You know who we are? I know. Then you know what happens to people who mess with us. I know what you think happens. Bishop studied him. You're not scared. Most men would be pissing themselves, but you're standing there like you're waiting for a bus. I've faced scarier things than motorcycles and leather vests. Word is you're some kind of military badass, trained SEALs. Bishop spat. I don't care what you were. I care what you are now. An old man running a bar. Then we understand each other. Bishop stepped forward. Here's how this works. You apologize to my boys. Pay their medical bills. Sell this bar and disappear. Do that. Maybe we let you live. Jack was quiet. Then, let me tell you a story. In 1991, I was running a resistance training exercise in North Carolina. 12 SEAL candidates. Toughest men you'd ever meet. Our job was to break them. Prepare them for capture. I don't care about your... One of those candidates, Jack continued, was a young lieutenant named James Bishop. Went by Jimmy. Tough, but had a temper. Kept fighting us instead of playing the game. I worked with him personally. Taught him that sometimes the strongest thing you can do is wait. Bishop had gone very still. Jimmy made it through. Became a fine operator. Did 3 tours. Last I heard, he'd gotten out and was raising a family in Montana. Jack paused. He'd be about your age now. Has a son named Marcus. Silence stretched. Bishop's face transformed from threatening to confusion, recognition, then slowly, awe. My father, Bishop said quietly. You trained my father. I did. He was one of the best I ever worked with. Bishop turned to his crew, then back at Jack. My old man never talked about training, but he talked about one instructor. Said the man was harder than anyone he'd ever met, but fair. Said he learned more from him than anyone else. Your father taught me things too, about patience, about second chances. Bishop was quiet. Then he let out a breath. My boys were wrong. Threatening that woman, that's not what we're supposed to be about. Then maybe it's time to remind them. Bishop nodded. He turned to his crew. Mount up. We're leaving. Murmurs of confusion, but no one argued. He walked to his bike, then paused. Medical bills. I'll cover them myself. I appreciate that. The bar. You keep it. You earned it. Bishop mounted. If you ever need anything, you call. Iron Devils pay their debts. I'll remember that. Engines roared. Motorcycles pulled out, disappearing down the highway until the sound faded. Jack stood watching the dust settle. Then he walked back inside. The locals stared with relief and wonder. Drinks are on the house, Jack said, returning behind the bar. Long week. Old Pete raised his glass. To Jack, the scariest damn bartender in Montana. Jack smiled and poured himself a bourbon. Some skills you never lose, and some lessons, once taught, echo through generations. If this story moved you, like, share, and subscribe for more stories of quiet masters who prove that true strength isn't about fighting, it's about knowing when not to.